Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Macabre Podcast Universe. Now, this is the podcast where we take on franchises, and we exist to prove people wrong when they say that sequels are never better than the originals. Now, we are currently in the middle of the trilogy, which is the Cornetto Trilogy, the three flavors Cornetto, something like that.
Okay.
But and these are the Edgar Wright directed movies. And we're on the second one, which is Hot Fuzz, which is represented by the normal vanilla flavor, but the blue wrapper Cornetto ice cream. We dug into that whole aspect a little bit on the previous episode, but for those of you who are just joining / a refresher, this is not a series as in reoccurring characters or anything like that. It's recurring themes. Mm-hmm. And it is just based on kind of a throwaway joke. But then by the time Edgar Wright was making the third movie, he was like, oh, let me kind of tie this together as like a thematic kind of his statement on filmmaking in a lot of ways.
So when was the first time you saw this movie?
I'm trying to remember. This would have been probably the second Edgar Wright movie I saw after Scott Pilgrim. And I think it was just on Netflix, and I just threw it on, and I watched like half of it, and then that night I was like, Dad, I watched half of this movie, and I stopped watching it because we should watch it. It's so funny. And then I watched it. This was the third time I've seen the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, what about you?
We've watched it together.
Yes. So maybe it was actually the fourth. No, I think I've only seen it 3 times.
The time that we watched it together was my first official time watching it, but I think prior to that I had seen it like on TV.
Yeah.
But like this movie came out, it was 2008?
2007.
2007. So it's like me being in middle school, parents were still kind of like wouldn't let us watch certain comedy, like adult comedies and stuff.
Yeah, this one's like right on the line.
Yeah, and
like,
so when at that age, I just assumed that all comedies were really bad, like morally really bad. So I think that I always thought that this movie was just up there with like a really irreverent, bad, morally wrong movie for some reason.
Yeah.
And then growing up, I've heard that it's just so hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And finally watched it officially. And it's like, yeah, this movie's hilarious.
Yeah. I know this was another one that, like I said last week, was at Shane's house, and he watched a lot. And I always saw it, like when I would flip through his DVDs on borrowing movies and stuff, I was always like, oh, that one. But it was still kind of like, I don't know. I kind of missed the boat on Edgar Wright until later.
Scott Pilgrim
but
for me, yeah.
Fortunately, he's very easy to get into, so I don't feel like I missed out because, you know, it's not like some movies where you're like, I would say The Goonies is this way for me, where I missed the boat and saw it when I was older, and it's like I get it, and I do think it's great, and I do like that movie a lot, but I don't like, it's not
part of you.
It's not a part of me, and you know
that sucks for you.
Yeah, it does.
Goonies is a big Jordan movie. I remember, since we've talked about Scott Pilgrim so much, like my introduction to Edgar Wright, but I believe how I watched that movie was I watched Juno, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is like one of the best movies I've ever seen. Yeah. And I'm like, Michael Cera is so great. I just want to watch anything that Michael Cera and Ellen Page are in. Okay. So I had known about Scott Pilgrim, but had never seen it. So then I just like, I probably was at Blockbuster at one point and was just like, oh my gosh, Michael Cera's in this. It looks good. Yeah. And I watched it alone, I think, in my room, and I watched it twice in one day. I was just so taken aback.
How old were you when you saw that?
In high school.
Wow, pulling a double feature in high school. That's like a classic like elementary, middle school move, but high school.
There are a couple, I've seen that movie twice in one day. I watched Inglourious Bastards twice in one day. And I also watched Black Swan twice in one day. I think those, the two that I said, the last two, it was like, Veronica, you got to watch this movie. So I would like watch it again that day with her.
I know that, although I did kind of say that I did that with Hot Fuzz just now, like with my dad. I think I did kind of have a dream of seeing Tenet, like buying 2 tickets to Tenet and just like walking out and then walking right back into the movie.
That's quite the risk.
But that movie's never coming out, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Which should we re-talk about the movie industry, since that was on one of our lost episodes?
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I wanted to kind of update the audience. Coronavirus, like the theaters are closed, or if they're open, it doesn't seem like a wise place to go. There were quite a few movies that basically, when we started this, we were like, okay, when we get caught up on a series, for example, Marvel, we will then, let's say the movie comes out on January 21st, like the new Marvel movie, we would see it that Friday night, and then the following Friday, we would interrupt whatever series we were on, and we'd come out with an episode on that.
Hence, so it would be Black Widow.
Yeah, so we were like looking forward to, like, this year we were going to do Black Widow, The Eternals. I think that
it's always going to be Marvel.
Yeah, we're going to have like several Marvel episodes every year, but then that didn't happen, which in one way is a little fortunate because we're still a little in the gray area on if Morbius is technically in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means we would have had to see Morbius in theaters, which is not something that I want to partake in.
Me neither.
Jared Leto as a vampire is like 0% interesting to me.
Yeah.
But also, Jared Leto has become 0% interesting to me. So,
what a bummer that guy is, don't you think?
Yeah.
Just like pretty into 30 Seconds to Mars growing up. And then I
actually got into him as an actor for a period of time.
Me too. Well, yeah, it started with 30 Seconds to Mars for me. And then I remember they have, if no one's seen it, it is just such a good music video. They do The Shining. Big recommend. I don't remember what song it is, but loved, like, that's what got me into 30 Seconds to Mars. Mm-hmm. And then I watched another music video sometime later, and it's kind of like an anthem song. Mm-hmm. And at one point it says, "We are a cult," and I was like, peace. Peace out, 30 Seconds to Mars. And then I started seeing stuff that he was in.
Yeah.
I think I had seen Fight Club and I didn't know that was him.
Yeah.
For the first time I saw it. But then, it just pretty quickly for me, it was like, this guy's too much. He's got too much of a Charles Manson vibe. And I know that's not nice to say, but he's
got the Manson eyes.
He has this look that's just it like can put you in a trance.
Yeah.
It's weird because like this, and this is an objective thing that I'm about to say, I think. And I know what I'm saying is actually subjective. He is like beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, but what's going on?
See, the thing that did it for me was so first of all, his performance in Suicide Squad was like insane. Yeah. I could not believe how bad it was. Yeah. Now, granted, that whole movie's a mess.
Yeah.
But there was like this whole thing where he like to be like a quote method actor, he sent like the cast like used condoms and like dead rats and stuff because I'm the Joker. And I'm like, dude, you suck if you're doing that. And I'm sure all the cast, I mean, someone like Will Smith, a consummate professional, he's got to be like, really? You just sent me a dead rat? I'm Will Smith. You don't send Will Smith a dead rat. What are you talking about?
Well, then it's like, it is harassing people.
I know, there should be like a suit against him for that. Yeah. That's disgusting. Like, I hate when method actors like go that far. It's so annoying to me. It's like, get off your high horse.
What do you think about Daniel Day-Lewis on my left foot, who made people carry him around everywhere?
I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis I love him. I think the older I get, the more I think method acting is kind of like stupid.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's your job to
Isn't
act.
Christian Bale a method actor?
Well, I think a lot of people are like method actors to certain degrees. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, like he loses and gains all that weight.
Yeah.
Which I think that's I think there's parts of it that are cool. And I do get like Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln, like trying to be Lincoln, like in that headspace, you know?
Yeah.
But also like Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker. I don't know why people have this stupid obsession with like making sure they're like method acting the Joker. It's like, he's a comic book character.
Weird about
Grow
it
up.
Because of Heath Ledger and him dying, it's like people are like, oh my gosh, the Joker totally effed him up.
Which isn't true.
No, but since then,
it's like this weird
it's extended
mythology.
into Bill Skarsgård apparently had to go to therapy for being Pennywise. I don't know if that's true. I think that if anything, that just gets people to watch the movie. Yeah. But it's like extends to other clowns. You know, it's just I think weird.
It's a weird thing that's blown out of proportion because there's also this weird, like, you know, there's this thing about Heath Ledger that, like, playing the Joker killed him.
Yeah.
Like, he went crazy and he, like, locked himself in a hotel room and he was, like, method acting the whole time. But you can look up set photos of him, like, goofing off during The Dark Knight. And he wasn't. I mean, I think he was method acting to a degree.
Yeah.
And I know that he did, like, lock himself in a hotel room to, like, get a laugh and go a little bit crazy. But he died after he was done shooting. I mean, it's tragic deth.
Well,
but
I think
there's a lot more to it than, like, playing a part in a movie.
I mean, yeah, it's a complicated thing to talk about, and I think because it's complicated, you can't just pinpoint one role that he was in made
Absolutely.
him do that.
Yeah,
it's like, no, I think it was a history of the things that he suffered through.
Yeah.
Mentally,
and it's
emotionally.
very tragic.
Yeah.
We don't want to downplay that at all.
Yeah.
But I would love whoever plays the Joker next, because inevitably it'll happen.
Yeah.
I want someone who's just like, they're like, so how'd you get in the headspace? And there's like, I don't know, I just showed up on set and did a goofy laugh and stuff.
We just need another Jack Nicholson type.
Yeah.
Like, because he had fun with it, you could tell, but he's also was so good.
Yeah.
He was so good, and but I do think that it's just he nailed that type of Joker that Tim Burton was going for.
Honestly, because at this point it's like, how much darker can you get with that character? We seriously need, like, a Cesar Romero, like, from the Batman TV show Joker. That's what we need next. If whoever's gonna play,
like, slapstick, like, he was just insane.
Yeah. He's just, like, goofy. It's like Three Stooges kind of stuff. That's what we need from Joker.
Yeah.
That is my claim. I'm saying we don't need another, like, twisted guy. It's not that interesting. All this to say,
Tenet.
Yes. So
why were we talking about Jared Leto?
I don't. Not Morbius. We were talking about Morbius.
Okay.
So we were talking about the movie industry and then how we had planned to do some of this stuff, but then we had also talked about on our Lost Winnie the Pooh episode, like what we thought of what was going on with the industry, and I remember we were talking about how, like, the fact that Nolan is trying so hard to make Tenet, like, the movie that gets released, like, first, feels really like he doesn't care about the health of the people who love his movies. So I'm like kind of soured on the movie. Like, I'm
totally.
not.
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, I'm like not. I don't really care about. I mean, if it came out tomorrow, like on video on demand, and it was like they're doing with Mulan, like $30, I'm watching it immediately.
Oh yeah,
I am.
I think that's a hard one because it's hard because of the Mulan thing being $30, and if you do think about it, because it is Disney, they can't ask for that much.
And for those of you who don't know, they did announce that Mulan is going to be released on Disney Plus, but you'll have to pay an additional $30 September 4th.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing among itself, but it is true to think about, like, Disney is proven. Well, I don't know if personally their live action isn't very proven. However, this one does look good, and I do want to see this one.
Yeah, me too.
But the fact that
like,
Disney,
I'm gonna wait like a year and just watch it for free on Disney Plus.
And we talked about this on the last episode, but like, it being $30, it's just mentally it's different, because if you're gonna go to the theaters with your family and spend $30, probably even more than that, you don't even think about it because you're going to the theater and having that experience. But for some reason, it feels different, even if it's the same amount of money, that you're going to watch it in your own home.
Right.
Definitely on a TV that's not as good as the theater TV or screen. So it's just, it's almost like you have the audacity to ask for $30, but then it's like, yeah, because it's Disney, they can. Same with Christopher Nolan. He's proven he could charge $30.
But there is a part of me with the Mulan that I'm like, I know people are kind of like digging on Disney for it.
Yeah.
But there's part of me that's like, maybe they can make this work and we can get some of those studio releases this year, which would be fun as a movie viewer to not just be like watching old movies, which I've actually been enjoying that because it's like, oh, I can like catch up on a bunch of stuff I haven't seen. And the few movies that we have seen that came out on digital have actually been really good.
Yeah.
Like Palm Springs and Relic have been like fantastic movies everyone should see.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's like, I'm kind of glad they're just doing this.
Yeah.
Because maybe it'll be like a complete failure, but then we'll know.
Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, that's the theater stuff. That's some of our thoughts on it. But let's talk about Hot Fuzz, a movie directed by Edgar Wright, once again written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. And this time we have music by David Arnold, who does the music to Sherlock.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He did the music to Paul, which is the movie about
an
alien, which has Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, and they wrote it. We should watch that.
Oh, yeah. It always looks so dumb to me.
Yeah. But it's probably really funny. Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, among other things. The cinematography is by Jess Hall, who did Hall. I said it so matter-of-factly.
So strong.
Jess Hall. No, Jess Hall. And this person did Transcendence, which... don't you think it'd be kind of nerve-wracking to be the director of photography on a movie directed by a person who is originally a director of photography?
Oh, yeah, that would be.
Or maybe it would be really nice because you'd just get each other.
Yeah, I mean, the movie wasn't good, but...
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Don't waste your time.
But it is Wally Pfister, who it's his first and I think only directed movie. He did direct an episode of The Tick, but he did cinematography for that. But he was Nolan's guy for a long time, and then he did that, which is why he couldn't do the cinematography for Interstellar. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and then he also did the cinematography. Jess Hall did the Jess Hall did the
Did you spell hell?
I didn't. No. He did the cinematography for Ghost in the Shell, Serenity, The Switch, among other things. The movie's edited by Chris Dickens again. Remember, this will be the last one that Chris Dickens edits with Edgar Wright. It comes out April 20th, 4/20, 2007.
What does it have to do with this movie?
I don't know.
No one smokes weed.
Yeah, but it's law enforcement, so...
Yeah, I mean, there's still no weed. Do police notoriously smoke pot?
Probably.
Okay.
I don't know.
Getting high on their own supply.
Yeah. I was just thought it was a funny date. It has nothing to do with that movie. The budget of the movie is 12 to 16 million in there, and then
Pineapple Express, did that come out on 4/20? That would make sense.
I hope that came out on 4/20, because if not, that is the craziest missed opportunity.
Are you looking it up?
Maybe ever. No, I forgot to look up the box office, so I'm grabbing that right now.
You really dropped the ball.
No. Domestically, this movie makes 23 and a little over 23.5 million, and then worldwide it makes 80.7 million.
Wait, what was it originally? Okay, can you say that all again? I zoned out.
The box office, the budget was 12 to 16 million.
Okay.
Domestically, the movie makes 23.5, a little over 23.5. Worldwide, it makes 80.7.
Cool.
So, very good. Edgar Wright felt like Britain didn't really have like the tradition of like cop movies that other countries had, so he wanted to make one.
Okay.
That's kind of like the original inspiration for this, and it took them 18 months to get the script all figured out. Him and Simon. That's a long time. The title is a play on 80s and 90s action movies that feel like in the 80s and 90s, Simon Pegg was saying how it just felt like people would just draw out of a hat of adjectives and nouns and they don't really have anything to do with the movie, like Lethal Weapon, or like they're just kind of random words that kind of work. So they wanted to
Does Point Break mean anything?
Not really.
Okay.
Like, what does that mean? Point Break?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I've only seen the movie once. I don't know.
Yeah, so it was kind of a play on that.
That's smart.
And The Wicker Man was an inspiration for this movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All of the action movies, you know, a cop that's in this weird town that's doing weird stuff. Pegg maintains that this is not a spoof movie. It is like a parody because he feels like spoofs usually look down on the material that they are spoofing, whereas they were like looking up to the material.
I see. Yeah.
And I think that is actually one of the geniuses behind the movie.
Yeah.
Because they could take the route of just like bashing all of these action movies, but it never feels like that. It feels like an homage, but in a really original way, not in a rip-offy way.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about an homage in the movie. When they're talking about the Shakespeare play, but remember when he pulls over the guy and he's like, it's an homage to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think that's just a part of the theme, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. The first draft of the script had a love interest for Nicholas.
Way to remove it.
But most of, well, not most, but a lot of like the dialogue, they just changed to Danny.
Smart. I like that a lot, especially because of Point Break and Bad Boys, but mostly Point Break being such an integral part to the story. Because Point Break, if no one's seen it, it's Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze basically in love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was thinking about this as the movie went on. Like this movie, like the previous movie is kind of a buddy movie. You know, Shaun of the Dead has like a buddy friend drama in the heart of it. This one has like a romantic comedy in it.
Yeah.
Between him and Danny.
Yeah.
And I think if you really think about all of these cop movies, most of them have an element of, you can probably argue what exactly, but there's an element of like the two main characters, it's usually male characters, are in some ways in love with each other in cop movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
and for Point Break, it's like forbidden love. Forbidden love because good guy, bad guy.
Yes.
Aren't supposed to get along and be friends or anything, but they're for some reason drawn to each other.
Yeah. And yeah, like in Bad Boys, they have kind of that. I've
never seen that movie.
There is,
and I think it's funny that they watch Bad Boys 2.
Yeah, they don't watch the first one.
Yeah.
But I think there is just something about like a forbidden love between like two cops.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, it's like, you know,
they're always away from their families, and they
spend more time together than anyone else probably. And it is like it's a heartless, gritty job. Like there's like you aren't supposed to be driven by emotion in this job,
right?
Because it's facts, hard facts. It's the law.
Yeah,
and that's why I think it's always so common that these like strong relationships are developed in spite of the law.
Yeah. I think this movie gets that about those movies.
Yeah,
and plays it up more than they would.
Yeah,
except Point Break could not be played up more than it is.
No, that is one of the most bombastic movies I've ever seen.
High recommend. I mean, it is like
so entertaining.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
and you got Keanu. So
yeah, and Patrick Swayze. I mean, he's crazy good in that. And you also have a cameo from
Red Hot Chili Peppers lead singer.
Yeah, whatever his name.
I don't know what his name is.
Andy Keys or something like that.
That sounds vaguely.
Anthony Keys. Anthony Kiedis, yeah. For like a role that's nasty. Like he's gross.
Yeah.
He just makes my skin crawl in that movie.
He's a beach bum.
Yeah. But then finally, there are two insane cameos in this movie that I was trying to make sure that you did not find out about so that we could figure out on the mic.
First.
So, first of all, because we have to give the audience, the person who plays Father Christmas in the flashback where Simon Pegg gets stabbed in the hand is a very famous director.
Okay, give me hints. So,
here's the hint. Because the other famous cameo is Nick's ex-girlfriend that's in the CSI house, like a CSI investigation, and her face is obscured. Forensics. And they are both, have
they worked together?
They've worked together, and we have covered both of them on what they worked on together.
Okay.
So those are your hints.
Okay, so the guy, give me a hint on the guy.
He's a director.
Yeah, but what? Give me another hint.
He has won Best Director and Best Picture in the same year.
And that's 2013, the year that the girl
No.
also? Okay.
No.
What year did he win?
2003.
Peter Jackson?
Or 2005, I mean. Yeah.
That's Peter Jackson?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Or is it 2003? What year did... No, like...
That girl's not Cate Blanchett. Yeah. What? It sounds nothing like her.
Look at a picture of her now. Look up, just write Hot Fuzz Cate Blanchett.
Oh, okay.
And you can see her eyes, and it's so obvious that it's her. It's crazy.
But it sounds nothing. Her voice is so recognizable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see it now.
Can't you see it now? Yeah. So that's that.
Wow. Whenever it's that's like one of the craziest cameos because you don't see either of their faces. And it's almost like, why? But also awesome.
Yeah, very cool. So that's all I got on the movie.
I'm, listener probably knows with me, I'm pretty disorganized. And this movie was very overwhelming in terms of the cast. So it'll probably feel more disorganized than usual because I was very overwhelmed with where to even start.
Yeah.
Obviously, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost covered them. We also, though, have Timothy Dalton, who plays Simon Skinner, that Micah giggled like a child every time he was on screen for some reason.
One of my favorites is just so Nick is jogging through the town, and he just pops up to him and he's like, I'm a slasher. I slash. And you're like, who is this
He's so
guy?
over the top.
And yeah, he is playing it so hammy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite performances in the movie.
So he's a James Bond.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can look at him and know that that's a James Bond. He just has the look.
And I feel like I'm sure that Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright must have freaked out when they got Timothy Dalton. Because in Britain, like, James Bond is, it's pretty big here, but it is like, he is a national hero in Britain. So, like, for them to, like, work with a James Bond, I'm sure they were so nervous when they got on set.
Yeah. He's also in Toy Story 4, apparently.
Yeah. He is
Mr. Prickle Pan or something.
Yeah, he's the hedgehog.
And he's also in Penny Dreadful, and then he does a lot of voice acting.
Cool.
And then Patty Considine, who plays one of the detectives, Andy Wainwright, who is in The Outsider. The recent HBO show The Outsider, based on Stephen King's The Outsider.
And he's the guy, he's in The Bourne Ultimatum. He's the reporter at the beginning.
Okay. And then he's in a lot of stuff. There's so many. Oh, he's in Death of Stalin. He's in Peaky Blinders, too.
Cool.
So that's him. And then, we've already covered Rafe Spall.
That's his partner.
Yeah, we had to pause the movie and talk about him for a second. So, like I said in the last movie, because he's in Shaun of the Dead 2, he is the like kid who works for Simon Pegg. Like, that is questioning him on everything.
That's in
questioning
Fallen
his authority.
Kingdom.
So he's also in Fallen Kingdom. It's kind of insane to watch Shaun of the Dead and then to watch this movie because it's a different person. And so the movies are 3 to 4 years apart. 3 years apart.
Yeah.
So Mike and I, we had to have a pause on the movie to talk about him for a second because I am sure this is what happened to this guy. He, through most of his life, was just a thick, chubby kid. And I'm just saying, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But he clearly, I'm assuming after Shaun of the Dead, because he was probably actually 17 when that movie was filmed or whatever, like a teenager, when you grow up, sometimes people just lose weight. And he probably just, within a year or two, suddenly looked like this other guy.
Yeah.
And it is like, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Watching Shaun of the Dead and then Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, it feels like that person you went to high school with, you see 2 years later and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, like just looks like a completely different person.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then Kevin Eldon, who plays Sergeant Tony Fisher, he is the Bill Hader and Stephen King had a baby guy. He's in Four Lions.
Oh, that's a pretty funny movie.
You know who's in Four
right.
Lions?
Riz Ahmed.
Is that guy's name?
I believe so. If it's
yeah, but I'm also talking about Kayvon Novak, who is in like on What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, oh my gosh. The What I can't remember. Nandor, yes.
Yeah.
I could hear his voice. That's all I could hear.
Oh, and then Kevin is also in The Crown, Sandition, just a ton of shows. Doctor Who. I think everyone's in Doctor Who. And then Olivia Colman.
Yes.
She is an Oscar winner for Best Actress for The Favorite in 2018.
And I remember that night, Edgar Wright he's a great follow on Twitter if you're a Twitter person. He was just tweeting about her like the whole night after she won.
She's also in The Lobster and The Crown and a vast amount of things. Isn't she in Broadchurch?
Yeah.
Also in Broadchurch, which apparently is an amazing show.
I saw one of those because I was looking. I don't always look through the trivia anymore, but these movies have like references and stuff. So it's like, oh, the trivia might have some stuff.
Yeah.
And they had, one of those kind of annoying trivia facts where it's like, this person has played a detective this many times. And she's played like a ton of detectives
really?
And police people. And this is like her first one. So.
Oh, interesting. And then Stephen Merchant's also in this movie. He's the guy who lost his goose. That's one of the...
Swan.
Swan, sorry. He is one of the creators of the UK office.
Yeah. He's in Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't going to really deep dive on him.
He's
trying to find...
It's kind of surprising.
There's just so many people, it's like, who do you touch on?
Ricky Gervais is not in any of these.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a big British guy,
Yeah.
I think people are kind of done with him now.
I think so. I think people are kind of done with the whole, like, yeah, we get it. Nothing matters.
Yeah. Well, and the joke on Blank Check that they bring up that is always funny is, have you guys heard?
Yeah.
That, and this is kind of like low key. Like, I don't want to, be like break the news or anything, but he's actually an atheist.
Yeah. It's so funny. And then Steve Coogan is also in this movie.
Yeah.
He's uncredited too.
I saw
he
that.
plays the Metropolitan Police Inspector. Steve Coogan.
We actually talked about him in the last episode because I was talking about I'm with Alan Partridge.
So that's him.
I'm Alan Partridge.
He's also in the other guys. That's why I don't have much. I haven't seen him in much, but he's so funny. And then I'm trying to find the guy in which Indiana Jones movie?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He's the
bad
priest.
Guy is in this movie. He plays the priest. I just want his name, but you see the cast list is so big. It's Paul Freeman.
Paul Freeman.
Probably some of the nicest eyes I've ever seen in my life.
He is someone that like, and it's not necessarily like an attraction thing, but I just like to look at him. He just has like
piercing.
such an interesting face. I mean, it makes so much sense that he's an actor. You know what I mean? Like he just has a look where you're like, I bet
he's a big theater guy. He just has the vibe.
Oh, yeah. Especially for some reason in this movie. Seeing him as a priest, it's like, oh, yeah, he's a theater guy.
Yeah. Bill Bailey, who plays the guy who's the twins.
Yes.
He is the whale in Hitchhiker's Guide the Galaxy. How come I'm... Sorry.
Hitchhiker's Guide
to the Galaxy. Yeah, he plays the whale.
Wow.
I've always wondered who narrated the whale.
Yeah. That's when the whale discovers the meaning of life and then immediately dies.
Yep.
Or no, it doesn't discover the meaning of life. The whale is falling as it gets like created in the sky. And it's like, where am I? What am I? What is my purpose in life? And then it just falls.
Yeah. I think that's it. I mean, of course, there's so many more people, but it's kind of unwieldy.
Oh, yeah. By the way, the whale in Hitchhiker's Guide, I believe in the third book, that there's like a whale carcass in the book that's
really?
Like a reference to that whale, and then something with that potted plant that falls as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it kind of like calls back.
That's funny.
So let's jump into the movie now.
Okay.
So the movie starts with Simon Pegg walking down this corridor, very intense. I love the juxtaposition of watching these movies back to back, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, because he is such a different character in this that it makes it extra fun to me. And then it shows this montage being narrated by Martin Freeman, and it is just showing how he is excellent in everything in the police academy.
From the physical challenges to the mental challenges to...
Like it shows him like drifting a car, then it shows him drifting a bike. It's like he excels in everything. But then it shows him on a SWAT team doing drug busts. Yeah.
And being part of big operations.
Yeah.
But then it also sees them being within the community, and people generally like him as a police officer.
So then it shows him meeting with Martin Freeman, and Martin Freeman's like this great bit where he's like, how are you doing? How's your hand? Because he got stabbed.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm doing good. And then he says, we're transferring you to this little village.
You're being made sergeant.
Yeah, and then we're taking you to this village. And he's like, what? Well, I want to talk to the next guy up.
Yeah.
And so then Steve Coogan comes in, but before he does, Martin Freeman's like, he's going to say the exact same stuff. And then he's like, how you doing? How's that hand doing?
Yeah.
And then just because Steve Coogan is just like, he is one of those people that I think he can do nothing and you're going to kind of giggle. Like,
absolutely.
He just is. He is so funny. So then he's like,
he has like a pretentious air about him in anything I've seen him in, and it works.
Well, I think what is like so great about weaponizing him is he has a pretentious air, but a lot of, at least with Alan Partridge and like in the other guys, is he's like this uppity British guy, but he's an absolute like dimwit, and he can't like he's always trying to save face, and you think that he's going to be really smart, and he's not.
Yeah.
And that's like the genius of his comedy.
Remember in the other guys when they're trying to confront him, and he keeps offering them like cucumber water and stuff, and then they get courtside seat tickets, and then they're like, wait a second, and then he gives them tickets to the Jersey Boys on Broadway.
He's like, oh, how'd you enjoy the Jersey Boys?
They're like, we loved it. No,
they're like, it wasn't good. It was fantastic. You completely undersold it. Yeah. But one of my other favorite bits in that movie is when they finally get him in the penthouse, like before the climax of the movie, and they're like, "So tell us what happened." And he goes, "Okay, well, I think the best way to do this is for me to start in the middle, and then I'm going to periodically flash back to the beginning several times, and then catch us up to the start. Actually, I think a better way is going to be starting right at the end, and then I'm going to go to the middle, come back to the end, and then go back to the beginning." And he does like 3 different ways, and then they're like, "Just tell us what happened."
Yeah, really funny.
But all that to say, he's so funny, and so he gets called in. He asks the same things, and then he's like, "Well, I want you to bring up like the chief,
guy above you,
chief inspector."
Yeah,
and he's like, "You want me to go up? You want me to talk to the guy up there, and have him come down here?"
Yeah,
and just because he's Steve Coogan, those lines aren't inherently funny, but it's like, oh, that's so funny.
So funny. And then it's Bill Nye.
Yeah.
Who he has such a interesting way of talking. His talking is so like smooth. It's like he never really takes a pause. He just keeps talking.
Yeah.
And it's just like it flows. It's like it ebbs and flows. Mm-hmm. So he was a funny addition to that scene as well. So he gets transferred to a small village.
Yes.
To be sergeant.
Because he's been making them look bad because
he's too good at his job.
He's too good at the job, and they're like, checks and balances. Come on.
And I think Simon Pegg says, you can't just make someone disappear. And they're like, well, yeah, we can. And so he goes.
Then we go to this crime scene, and he is meeting with his ex, who we found out is Cate Blanchett. Now, the beauty of this scene, just something that is totally amazing about it, is that for maybe the only time I personally have seen it in film, the people working the forensics are actually wearing what forensics people wear on a set. Yeah. It's not like people in suits like lifting stuff up with pins, not wearing glasses or coverings. And I was kind of like, that's kind of incredible that they did that detail in a comedy. And there's like 40 people in the house, because it's like, yeah, there's blood everywhere. It would take a while.
And I think it's funny with her that I think she's wearing glasses and they're talking and she takes off her glasses for emphasis. Like, you know, like when you're wearing something on your face, it's like, take it off so that it's like, you really understand me. But she doesn't like her glasses. She should be taking off the face covering.
Yeah.
So that because of the costume, they play it up for laughs.
Yeah.
Very good choice.
And then when he's like, she's like, also, I need to tell you that, and he's like, you've been seeing someone else? Is it Frank? And she's like, do you really think Frank's my type? And this guy turns, he's wearing all the stuff, and he's like,
hey. Yeah.
And then she goes, no, it's Bill. And then Bill turns around, and he looks exactly the same because he's wearing the exact same outfit. You can't see anything. Hey.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the great Edward
Cullen.
Edgar and Simon, like their humor, that kind of like, there's an intense conversation happening, but on top of that, there's a layer of comedy that also is being referenced throughout.
Yeah.
So then he gets transferred to the village, and I did not write down the name. Is it Sanford?
Sanford. Yes.
Okay.
But Gloucester's in there somewhere. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But it's Sanford.
Yeah. And when he goes, he checks into where his flat is going to be.
Well, no, he checks into a hotel because it's...
hotel. Okay.
His cottage isn't ready.
And this speaks to, again, that, like, I'm calling it double talk, where he's talking to the lady. He walks up and she's working on a crossword puzzle, and she looks at him and says, "Fascist." And he goes, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
And then she goes, 12 across, 4 letters or however.
Wow, it's 12 letters.
However many
but
letters.
Then they talk, and then he's like, "Hag."
And she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, 12 down, witch who lives in a, whatever. So,
how many letters is that?
3. I'm not doing so hot today.
No.
Well, actually, I am very hot today. The apartment is very hot.
Okay.
I'm having a hot flash. Can guys have hot flashes?
Anyone can have a hot flash, Micah.
What is a hot flash?
I think you're experiencing it, so that's what it is.
Okay. I thought it was...
Oh my gosh. You're never going to finish this episode.
And so then he goes to a pub. And while he's there, he gets cranberry juice because he doesn't want to drink on the job. Although he's not on the job yet.
But his life is his job, so he is on the job.
Yeah. And he notices that, like, the kids that are drinking there are kids.
15-year-olds.
And there's a great effect that they do where he looks at this kid and sees braces, and then they shine a bright light on his face, and he's, like, squinting.
Yeah.
And then he goes around and he's asking people for their age, and he kicks everyone out. And then the pub owners are like, well, we figure if they're making trouble in here, it's better than them making trouble out there.
Yeah.
And then he goes in, he arrests he doesn't arrest him, he just kicks him out, but he arrests Danny, who he meets. We shouldn't call him Nick because Simon Pegg's name is Nick.
So Danny is trying to drive home, but he is very drunk. So Nicholas takes him to the jail, and he also, on his way, gets some more kids. Well, the same kids, but like one of them's, it's like public urination.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the other kids were doing something bad too. So he shows up with like 3 of the kids and Danny. And the guy there, I don't know what that role is called, but he's just another police officer.
Yeah.
It's just like very, like, oh my gosh, you're basically already working. So, he impounds, he does all the paperwork. You can see he enjoys the paperwork. He enjoys every part of this job.
I love that when he's doing the paperwork, the way it's edited. Yeah, they shoot it like it is cool and intense, and how they would shoot like a early 2000s cop action movie.
Yes. So next morning, first day starting the job, he goes to try and find Danny, who's in the jail. He's not there. Where is he? He's a police officer. Not only is he a police officer, he is the chief inspector's son. Mm-hmm. So it's like small town. He learns quickly. Everyone knows each other, and because it's a small town, it's like, everyone's up in each other's business, and so, they let things slide because no one's going to do anything wrong here. Yeah. It's so small. The city's the dangerous place. But the chief inspector who plays Slughorn in Harry Potter,
yes,
Professor Slughorn, he is.
Which one is Slughorn? Like, what's his deal?
He is in.
What does he teach?
Half-Blood Prince. Oh, he teaches dark arts. And potions. He teaches potions.
Is he the one that had talked with
Tom Riddle?
Tom Riddle.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's the flashbacks.
The reason why Dumbledore wanted to bring him back to Hogwarts was so that Harry he could tell Harry some memories and extract memories from him so that they can understand. That's when Horcrux is revealed in that movie.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
So
can't wait to watch him again.
Me too. Me neither. I mean, okay. So he's touring. He's giving.
wait. Can't wait to watch him again. Me neither.
Oh, yeah, whatever. I can't wait either.
I know, but
okay. Oh my gosh, this is the worst. Okay, so Slughorn is giving him a tour around the precinct, meeting everyone. Hilarious to me that Olivia Colman is the only woman police officer, and she's just kind of like the resident slut. Like it's a trope.
Yeah.
That I think is pretty funny. Usually I wouldn't, but because it is a parody.
Well, and I think the way she acts it and plays it is just just very self-aware.
Yeah, and even down to that of she's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then you meet the detectives who are basically the same person down to they're both named Andy.
Yeah.
And then they're all eating cake, and apparently it's because it has something to do with Danny.
Yeah, like when he gets in trouble, he has to buy like sweets for everybody.
Yeah, so since last night, he has to get a ton of ice cream.
Yeah.
For the next time.
And so then we see Nick and Danny on patrol, and the whole time Nick is enamored with his love interest, Nick, by saying like because he knows he worked at
about Danny.
in London. Sorry, Danny. Like Danny knows that Nick worked in London, like and did all this crazy stuff. So he's like, did you shoot your gun in the air? Did you ever kill anybody? And the whole time, they're doing stuff and. Nick's like, no, yeah, not into it at all.
But that's saying like, that's not really why you become a police officer. Like, that's not really like what you should be looking forward to doing as a police officer. So it's like, he's a hard ass.
Yeah.
So while they're doing this, he's saying like, let's observe people. So he starts kind of teaching Danny how you can be a police officer because it's clear that no one does anything.
Yes.
Who's a police officer.
Yeah.
So they're to the scene where they're doing traffic control and someone's going like 18 miles over the speed limit. They pull him over and Nicholas is using the notebook and to write everything down that the guy's saying and saying that like, this is your most important tool. Love that touch. This movie's so hard to talk about.
Well, it's extreme. What's funny is it is like very plot heavy.
Yeah.
Even though it's very funny and it goes from place to place to place, it is very like detail oriented as well, which like usually cop movies are, because then you got to be like, oh, and here's the big reveal. This.
Yeah.
And so they have to plant all this stuff. Basically, though, just side note. There's a swan on the loose. That'll come back later. We don't have to talk about the swan. But and Nick is being in the precinct. Everyone is like making fun of him and kind of sick of him because he's making them look bad. And also, we'll find out later, like the whole village is in on this whole conspiracy.
So because it's so dense, let's just talk about the murders. So the theater guy and girl, they get murdered. They're the first murder. And everyone in town is like, it's an accident. It was just an accident. And then Nicholas is saying, because it was a car accident, he's like, you do not say accident is a traffic collision. Also, I think that this was a murder.
Yeah.
I mean, they were decapitated. But everyone, he oh,
you okay?
So sorry. I just can't talk about this movie. Okay. So then the next murder is the small guy in the pub.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
And he gets murdered by the house getting blown up, but it's staged that he just left the gas on while cooking bacon and beans.
Yes.
And it's this whole thing, later a guy gets killed from
what's interesting is Nicholas comments on the reasons why they were murdered before they're murdered.
Yeah.
So like the theater guy, the theater people, they were murdered because they're terrible at theater. And he comments on that.
Oh,
the night of the theater of the play. And then the small guy that they bring home, he comments on this isn't really keeping in theme with the rustic environment of the village.
Right.
And that's why he was murdered. And then the lady who was murdered next,
the Tim Messenger, the guy who works for the paper, is murdered next. By
it's absolutely insane.
It's very graphic.
Yes.
But they're at the church and the person pushes like a spike,
like a spire or something.
A spire off, and it lands directly on his head. And his head explodes. It's so
ridiculous.
I think if there wasn't CG blood in it, it would be like hard to watch.
Yeah, well, it's funny. With Shaun of the Dead and then this one, they're both incredibly violent.
I think they like push it past the threshold so that it's not hard to watch.
I think so too. I can't remember the next movie though. I don't remember the next movie being violent.
Yeah, I don't remember it being violent either.
Yeah, so he's murdered because he's a bad speller.
Yeah.
Because earlier it was proven in the paper that Nicholas was reading, he misspelled his name.
Yeah, Nicholas Engel instead of Angel. And yeah, that affected him. That is interesting that he saw all those reasons that they were murdered. The only one was the woman in the flower shop. He didn't know. He didn't comment on her and why she was murdered.
But when all these murders occur, and when they're investigating them, the person who is always there is Skinner, Timothy Dalton.
Yeah. All of these murders. There's the woman with the shears, and it is just insane. And like Jordan just established, I think it is kind of best to just jump around on this. I hope it's not too... I hope you can follow, but hopefully you've watched the movie, so you're like, yeah, I get it. But the woman gets stabbed with shears, also incredibly violent.
Yes.
And that's kind of when Simon Pegg is cracking the whole case. And, the other reason this is hard to talk about is how many characters there are.
Yes.
Yeah, because we haven't even talked about... the like sidekick guy that has like a child's brain, and I almost think we shouldn't.
No.
Although he says "yarp" a lot.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
It is interesting because there are so many characters in this movie, and it is so plot heavy that, of course, we're not going to talk about certain people, and sometimes it's like, well, maybe they shouldn't even have been in the movie. That is not true with this movie because a lot of it's played for comedy.
Well, and the other thing is like this genre, detective genre. Classically is like there's bloated amount of characters.
And not only that, it's a small town.
Yeah.
So that too.
And I mean think about Knives Out. There's like 10 main characters, and they're all like main characters.
Yes.
They're actually more like 12 or 13. And so, it's hard to keep track of everything. Mm-hmm. So you just need in movies like this a good reveal scene that you're able to encompass everything and go like, that's what you just saw. And then the more times you watch it, the more you're like, oh yeah, that person this, that person this.
Right.
Because you just can't, it can't be like a one-time view. No. It can. Like, it can't be like all these characters without like a perfect revelation scene.
Oh, totally.
Oh, otherwise the movies are just so incoherent.
And before we get there, we'll touch on throughout all of this, of course, Danny and Nicholas's friendship is developing, and it's becoming a true friendship. Mm-hmm. It starts with Nicholas basically teaching how to be a police officer to Danny.
Yeah.
And it goes to where Danny is able to kind of like dig into Nicholas, like, why did you want to be a police officer?
Yeah.
And then it goes even to Danny without saying you need to loosen up, but getting him to loosen up to the point where they watch Point Break and Bad Boys 2 in one night.
Yeah.
And to the point where
I love when he goes, which one? He's holding the DVDs and he goes,
I haven't seen either of them.
And he's like, we're just gonna let's just watch this one. And he's like, I was wondering which one you wanted to watch first.
Yeah. So good. But then when it's Danny's birthday, Nicholas doesn't know, but he drops everything to buy him a Japanese lily plant.
Yeah. And that's when the hedge clipper killing happens.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, this person is important to him.
Yeah. And I think after the guy is killed at the church, they kind of have, if we're talking about like the romantic comedy element of this, they have like a breakup where Nick's like, no, I'm married to the job. And he's like, nah, come on. And he literally like runs away in the rain. It's like classic romantic comedy tropes. And then he gets the peace lily, the Japanese water lily.
Yeah.
And then they kind of like rekindle their friendship, and then they get back together. Mm. And that is the like romantic comedy element of the movie, and what I think elevates this movie.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say that actually I should wait till we get to the reveal. So
let's just do it now.
Yeah. We stumble upon this cultish thing with a lot of split diopter shots that you pointed out. Where the town watch group is all around this table, and they make decisions because Simon Pegg thought it was this big like conspiracy that had to do with property.
Well, he thought that it was Skinner because, based on his investigation, he owns a grocery store.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want someone to come in with a chain grocery store.
Right.
And that's why he was killing certain people.
Yeah. But then he stumbles upon them having their like secret council with like hoods on and stuff. And he's trying to arrest them all. And then this is when he finds out that it's simpler than that. They just want to maintain like the number one village.
Yeah.
In Britain.
Yeah.
Because
and it all stems from when Danny's mom, Slughorn's wife, she is a big integral part to why the village is like best village. But one year, some hippies rolled into town and ruined everything. And she couldn't take it and she killed herself. So,
although it was a traffic accident.
Traffic collision.
Yeah. Which means that her dad killed her. The implication is that she was murdered.
But you do see... Okay, so it's revealed just like everything we said, bad actors, not keeping in with the rustic theme. The lady who owned the flower shop just was simply trying to move away, and she was a reason why the village was winning the awards.
Yeah.
Killing all these people. Oh, go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say is I think this popped into my head while we were watching it, that this movie also, like Shaun of the Dead, has some commentary about like fear and anxiety and stuff like this. This one has a commentary that I related to, I guess, or saw, of like gated communities where, first of all, they're not usually policed that much. And then, I think about like Cherry Lane here in Medford and how it's like they have like a code of conduct. If you live there, you have to like put out Christmas lights and it has to be really crazy and you have to keep your lawn mowed and all this stuff. And I feel like this movie is also a commentary on how that is like kind of a weird thing that exists.
And because of it, it is like, because, like the police department is so naive to all of it. And in a lot of ways, I think they're choosing to be naive because it's like, this is a small town. Everyone knows each other. Of course, all this stuff is an accident. Why would anyone have a reason to kill someone?
Right. And it is that, learning more about like, our country and bad things that are going on, knowing that like, of course crime statistics are not as high in a gated community where police never go. Yeah. And like, this is almost like an allegory about like watching it today. That's kind of what I got out of it. Yeah. As like an extra layer. So, really, really kind of fascinating. I thought that this conspiracy of a town just trying to be uppity. Yeah. And simple as that.
All of what they've done is further proven when they're chasing Nicholas and he falls into like a crypt under the church pretty much. Because that's like in the area they are. Yeah. But he sees the hippies, the bodies of the hippies. Yeah. He sees bodies of hoodlums, which are just those kids. Yeah. Where a lot of them was just because they looked like gangster kids. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's like further proving like they're just getting rid of the undesirables. Yeah. And then you see
which also would be a commentary about like, like white areas where it's like, we only want white people to live here,
Totally. So then Danny shows up and he is still on the side of his dad because it's his dad. Mm-hmm. So, he stabs Nicholas. And you're like, wow. I mean, it's like, where could this movie go from here? Because his one true friend like betrayed him. And then you find out that like Danny's giving him a chance to just run away and forget about it. Yeah. And of course, Nicholas is like, I can't do that. This is against the law.
So he's going to go get like London and bring him in. Yeah. And as he's leaving, he stops at a gas station and he sees a DVD shelf with Bad Boys 2 and Point Break. Yeah. And it kind of zooms in on Keanu Reeves. Yeah. And he's like, okay. And he goes back, goes into the police closet, dons all the shotguns, machine guns, and everything he can carry. And then he gets on a horse and walks into the town the next day. It's the day that they're being judged for Best Village. And as he's coming in, it's all shot like it is a Western, which is really, really cool. So beyond just the action movies, they throw this Western nod where he's literally on a horse, this lone gunman come into a town that's overrun.
Yeah, well, he's the sheriff in town.
He's the sheriff, and he's going to put everybody back in business. So what ensues is a huge gunfight.
Yeah.
Where, as they say earlier, everybody and their mom has a gun.
Yeah.
And they just start going crazy. People are dying. Then Danny jumps into the fight as well. We should mention they have bought and eaten Cornettos twice in this movie. They're going through. They're doing all the fight. It eventually leads them into the grocery store, and there's a pretty long fight there.
It's a pretty long action sequence.
Yeah.
Because, like, each character has been established throughout the movie, so it's almost like each of the quote-unquote bad guys kind of get their due.
Yeah.
But it all comes to a head when the police officers show up in, like, their out-of-date SWAT team uniforms.
Uh-huh.
And Nicholas is, like, yelling at them, like, you got to stop being so naive about all of this.
Yeah.
They understand. They're on his side.
Right. I had forgotten to mention
it all goes
that.
to, which I don't really understand what this is about, but it all ends up at that kid who's like building a miniature town.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well,
because they didn't never showed a kid working on a miniature town.
I don't think he's working on it. Because when he first shows up into the town, there is a sign that says miniature village, and it points in a direction.
Oh, okay. I just missed it then.
Yeah. I think the kid is just looking at it. Like he's just visiting the miniature village.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's this big fight at the miniature village with Skinner.
Yeah.
And what's funny that I'd never caught before is, and the same with the dad. The dad and Skinner both die. Well, actually, Skinner does not die, but they get defeated because of an actual legitimate accident.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie they've been staging.
What happens to the dad?
Well, remember, he's in the car and the swan pops up and he crashes his car.
Because I think it shows him getting taken to jail. But
they're those two people, they don't get murdered or killed. They actually...
That's funny.
Ironically, have an accident.
Yeah.
And then Skinner runs and he slips on a model car and gets impaled through the bottom part of your jaw on a spire on the church.
It's hard to look at.
It's pretty tough to look at.
And he's just like, oh.
Yeah.
And by that time, the London shows up.
Yeah. And then everything is resolved basically. Well, then there is, and I feel like this was like extra. I didn't need it in the movie, but he's at the precinct and they're filling out all the paperwork. They're like, man, this is a lot of paperwork. Yeah. And then who comes in?
It's the guy who like basically monitors the town.
Yes, and he's
like probably dispatch.
Yeah, and he attempts to shoot Nick, and then Danny jumps in front of the bullet, and then a mine goes off. The mine from earlier, which we didn't talk about on the podcast, but... You know, and then like the whole precinct is leveled, and then we show them at a grave, and Danny is like giving flowers to his mom,
right?
Or Nick is actually, but I don't think that scene really needs to be in there.
No,
I think it's like it feels kind of not tacked on, but it's like I do think a lot of like action movies do that, where you're like, oh, it's over, and then there's like, but you forgot about me.
I do think it is interesting because when the big reveal happens, when all of the people, you find out that it's all of the neighborhood watch people who are doing everything, a lot of the times in a movie, the movie's going to be over pretty quick.
Yeah.
But there's a lot after that scene. And I think like there's still a lot of funny bits.
Uh-huh.
But it is kind of like maybe all of that stuff should have been a little shorter.
Yeah, so I like this movie a lot. I love this movie. And Edgar Wright, we can't wait to have you on the podcast someday. And so do not take this as a bash in any way. But I get a little bit of fatigue by the time he like rolls up with the horse.
Yeah.
I'm a little like, okay, I'm like kind of done. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what the solution of that is, but it is a 2-hour movie. And I do feel like maybe it would be a little bit better if it was like 15 to 20 minutes shorter.
Yeah, I agree.
That's like my one complaint. And
I think it's just because of how a story arc goes. Because finding out that they're all the bad guys, that is like the climax.
Yeah.
So then the falling action is usually pretty quick. I mean, based on how the story structure goes, and it's just not very quick.
Yeah. But it is funny, though, because it's like, I feel like the action scene could lose probably like 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, you know that the movie's been building to an action scene. And they kind of have to do that.
Yes.
And it's not my favorite, like, filmed action scene, but at the same time, they are spoofing particularly, like, the 90s and early 2000s.
Which are over the top.
And, like, very cut up. So it does make sense.
Yeah.
We should mention they do the fence gag in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's in all the Cornetto movies, where Simon Pegg says, "I know a shortcut," and he jumps over all these fences and then flips over the last one. There's 4 fences, and he jumped over 3 of them, and then a stuntman did the 4th one.
And also, I noticed in these 2 movies, he jumps over a car, and I'm curious if he does it again in the next movie.
Like slides over the hood, right? Yeah. And then when Danny goes through the fence, he just smashes through it, and he like looked back at the camera so that people would realize that he did it, not a stuntman. He didn't want people to think a stuntman did that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, when they are in, I think, the pub, when it's like the showdown, they're having the showdown with the inspector, there's like a video game sound.
Oh, okay.
And that video game sound is in all 3 of the movies. It was in Shaun of the Dead. It's like the video game he's playing.
Okay.
So that's another thing that's in all of them.
Cool.
Yeah. So
didn't know that. Didn't pay attention to that.
Yeah, I heard it and it was kind of like, why is this in here? That's weird.
Yeah.
Like, cause it just kind of like happened.
They did show that there was a video game in there though.
Oh, they did
earlier. Because remember that guy was peeing on it.
Oh, that's right. Very funny movie.
Yes.
It's great. I like Shaun of the Dead more.
Me too.
Quite a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, do you have any final words on the movie?
No, I think if I keep talking, I'll lose my mind.
Well, next week we're doing The World's End, finishing out the Cornetto Trilogy. And since this was only a trilogy, we're going to announce our next series next week.
Cool.
We're not going to announce it 2 weeks ahead. But they're all on Netflix, so that'll make it easy for you. Yeah, at World's End. Don't forget to...
The World's End.
Or The World's End, not the Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
I know, it's okay.
Don't forget to watch my Little Women video. It'll be linked in the podcast. And read Jordan's blog, Recount and Reveal. And stay safe and have a wonderful day.
Bye. You have beef?
Do I have beef?
With me?
No.
Are you just cranky?
Am I?
I don't know. You're kind of a stinker.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What's making you...
I don't know. It just all started off going bad when you sneeze so loudly.
See, that's a total you thing. That's not a me thing.